Welcome to Finding Holiness, where we delve into timeless Torah wisdom, revealing the sacred in everyday moments. Join us on a journey to elevate your spirituality and discover holiness in every aspect of life. I'm your host, Rabbi David Kadosh, and together, let's embark on a path of spiritual exploration. I hope you enjoy this next episode. Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Parashat HaShavua class. We are studying this week Parashat Yitro. It's always a beautiful feeling when we get to this parasha. It's the Parashat Matan Torah, parasha where the Jewish people finally become a nation. Because Am Yisrael without the Torah is just individuals. But now we become an Am. Now we become Bnei Israel with the giving of the Torah on Har Sinai. That's no question the main theme of the parasha. We are introduced to a man, Yitro. Let's go over the parasha quickly. Yitro is Moshe's father-in-law. He's already been Moshe's father-in-law from Parashat Shmot four weeks ago. And the reason why he's mentioned in this week's parasha, twofold. Number one is that he saw the miracles, Kiryat Yamsuf, Milchemet Amalek, that Rashi brings down, and he decided to join the Jewish people himself, which is an amazing thing. The other day, I thought of an idea. I YouTube shorted it. You know YouTube shorts? You know those things where you get like 15 seconds or 60 seconds to say something? So it's an amazing thing. Amazing thing that Moshe Rabbeinu would actually marry the daughter of a priest, of an idol-worshipping priest. Right? Today, that's unheard of. Right? Like, a person goes out with a girl or vice versa. And like you look at the father's idol worship, I don't want anything to do with this guy. I don't know, why would I even date this girl? But look, Moshe Rabbeinu married the daughter of, So I said in the YouTube short, stop being so judgmental. You know what I mean? Like you look at the person at hand. He loved Tzipporah. He thought she was beautiful. She had great qualities. I'm sure she felt the same way about Moshe Rabbeinu. I don't think there's much negative to say about Moshe. And they got married. Eventually, Yitro found his way and joined the Jewish nation. The reason why the parasha is called Yitro is because of the parasha Yetera, the extra parasha that because of him was instituted, which is the parasha right at the beginning of the section, right at the beginning of the portion, which is the institution of a court system. Moshe Rabbeinu was very much overwhelmed by the amount of people asking him questions. This is in an age before WhatsApp and before email. There was lineups of people around Moshe Rabbeinu's tent asking him questions. Remember, things were new. Everything was new. Whether this happened before Matan Torah or after Matan Torah, it's a machloket in the Gemara and amongst the Rishonim. When did Yitro show up to give this advice? Certainly, if he came after the giving of the Torah, no question. You can imagine these lines were huge. Like, 613 mitzvot and all these details that go along with it. But even before Matan Torah, there were still some mitzvot that they were given. They want to know. Jews want to know what to do. And Yitro gave him this advice of, listen, you can't do this on your own. It's too much. And you got to create a hierarchy of a court system where you have judges who are on top and you have judges for tens and judges for 50s and hundreds. And you create what we have today, municipal courts, provincial courts, federal courts, Supreme Courts. This what we have here in Canada was instituted by Yitro. Only the harder questions will come to you, Moshe. After that, of course, is the giving of the 10 Commandments. And after the Aseret HaDibrot, which, of course, is not just the giving of the Aseret HaDibrot, but the preparation for the 10 Commandments, and when it was entailed, that every person had to purify themselves, and men had to separate from their wives, and you couldn't come near the mountain. But after that, the parasha ends simply with a command on how to build the Mizbeach. The Mizbeach has to be built from earth. It cannot be used it cannot be used with a sword, meaning a sword cannot be used to shape the Mizbeach. And some other commandments had to be a ramp and not steps. That's how the parasha ends. But indeed, I do want to focus today on this extra parasha of Yitro. A lot of us, when they get to again this parasha, they want to talk about the 10 Commandments. I'm going to veer away from the 10 Commandments today, and I want to speak about this extra portion that Yitro brought to the table. This constitution of a court system that again is around today, and the pasuk says very, very I guess, briefly, who to look for when finding judges. When you go up to Moshe. Okay, it's a big question on why Moshe Rabbeinu didn't think about this prior to Yitro. It could be that Hashem had it in his mind to give Yitro the zechut, the merit of coming up with this idea. But listen what Yitro says. Ve'ata techezeh mikol ha'am. Who are you going to find, Moshe? Like, where do you go? Do you just start knocking on doors and saying, hey, are you interested in being part of the court? Do you want to join the Supreme Court, the provincial? Like, how does this work? This is all new to the people. There's no law society books. There's no university courses. So what exactly are you supposed to look for when choosing the judges, the future judges of Am Yisrael? So this is what Yitro says. Ve'ata techezeh mikol ha'am. In Perek Yudchet, chapter 18, verse 21. And then you shall see from among the entire people, Anshe Chayil. Anshe Chayil is men of means, which means they are, Rashi says, Ashirim. They are wealthy. The reason why they're wealthy is because they have no need to play favorites, because they have money already, and I don't need to flatter them. They shouldn't be flattered, and they don't have to flatter others, so therefore, they have to be wealthy. Yireh Elokim, God-fearing. Anshe Emet, which are men of truth. Rashi says, Elu ba'alei havtacha, men who inspire confidence, meaning they can be relied upon. Son'e batza, people who despise money. Son'e batza. V'samta alehem sarei alafim, sarei meot, sarei chamishim, sarei asarot, and you are going to appoint them leaders of thousands, leaders of hundreds, 50s, and 10s. So these are the four criteria. Men of means, rich men, anshe emet, men of truth, yireh Elokim, God-fearing, and sonei batza, people who despise money. All right, you find these men, these are your judges. These are going to constitute your Sanhedrin. The future Sanhedrin of Am Yisrael, they have to fit this criteria. There's a midrash in this week's parasha, a lot of midrashim, but it's brought down in the Mechilta. So where the midrash says on the words Anshe Emet sonei batza, men of truth and those who despise money. Anshe Emet, the midrash says 5 words. Kegon Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa. Like Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa. Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa was one of the supreme Tanaim in the time of the Mishnah. He was a miracle worker. He was a miracle maker. He was able to defy nature on many occasions. A couple stories come to mind about Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa. One, the Mishnah talks about how he was able just to tell from his tefillah, from his prayer, whether a person was going to live or die. Imagine you go up to someone and you say, Rabbi, someone's sick, can you pray for them? Sure. No? Oh, they're going to be fine. How do you know? How do you know? He says, very simple. I'm able to tell how smoothly the words come out of my mouth. If they come out smoothly, you're good. If they come out choppy, I got some bad news for you. And he was able to tell. That's a Mishnah in Masechet Brachot. Another story that we've mentioned here in between Mincha and Arvit once. Another story in Masechet Brachot, how there was this serpent, snake, arod, that was harming people. It was coming out of its hole and stinging people, and people were dying or getting injured. It was wreaking havoc on the community. And Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, they went up to Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa and they said, well, what do we do? We don't know what to do. People are getting injured. They're not coming to work. People are dying. And every time it bites, it goes back into its hole. And we can't catch this serpent. So he says, show me the hole. So they brought him to the hole. He sees the hole. He goes, that's a hole. So he takes his foot and he puts his foot right onto the hole of the serpent. And the serpent comes out and bites Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa. And then the serpent dies. Dies. The snake, whatever it was, it dies. Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa takes the snake, he wraps it around his shoulders, like that wrestler. What was that wrestler? Jake the Snake. Yeah, Jake the Snake Roberts. would wrap the snake around, but it's a dead snake. That's the difference, a dead snake. And he went back to the Bet Midrash, and he said one of the most famous lines you will ever learn and ever find anywhere. And he said, gentlemen, it is not the snake that kills, it is the sin that kills. Lo ha'arvad memit ela hachet memit. It's the sin that kills. Meaning, Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa was free of sin. And a person can only get punished if he has in his bank account a lot of red. When you have red in your bank account, then that's when you're going to receive punishment and suffering and so on and so forth. And that's why these people were getting injured by this arvad. And he did it because he was such a holy tzaddik. I'm not going to get into that story, so much more into that story, like, why would he put himself in that situation? That's for another time. But no question, he was a man that defied nature. And the Gemara also tells us that all he lived on was caribs. Caribs. From Shabbat to Shabbat, he ate caribs. Some say he fasted all week, and it was only he ate caribs on Shabbat, and some say that's what he ate throughout the week. So, okay, I get it. He must have been a big tzaddik. But where do we see that he has the midah of ish emet? How do we understand this midrash? That he was a man of truth. And sonei batza. So, there's another story brought down in Masechet Ta'anit of a man who forgot, he must have left some chickens in the yard of Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa. And Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa says, this is I don't know, Naphtali's chickens. I have to watch them. I know they belong to him. Next day, Naphtali's not showing up anymore. All right, it's a week, 2 weeks later, he's feeding these chickens. Eventually, the chickens are getting old because they got to do something with these chickens, and they're reproducing. So he takes the chickens, he sells the chickens, and he buys now ezim. He buys goats and lamb and sheep and all the type, like a higher animal, more expensive animal. Finally, after a year or two, okay, the guy comes back. Naphtali said, "Hey, I left my chickens here a year ago." And Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa says, "Yeah, here we go. These are your chickens." And he shows them cows, and he brings them goats, and this. He's got a whole herd of animals. There. And what happened? I left 10 chickens. Now I got this guy. This is yours. This is all yours. Beautiful story. But again, how do we see ish emet? How do we see man of truth? The tarnegolim, the chickens, the roosters, whatever it is that he left there, they must have the siman. By law, he has to give them back. If I know that these chickens belong to Naphtali, I got to give them back to Naphtali. So yeah, it's a wonderful thing what he did, but it's a law in Shulchan Aruch. How does that make him different than anybody else? So this question is asked by many, and it goes back to what we quoted earlier, Gemara Masech Brachot, that says, "Kol ha'olam nizon bishvil Hanina beni," where the whole world, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because the heavenly voice says, the whole world is sustained because of Hanina, my son. This Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa. The Hanina beni dai lo bekav charuvi me'erev Shabbat le'erev Shabbat. But Hanina ben Dosa, as much as the world is sustained on the merit of him, what does he sustain himself on? Caribs. The cheapest and tasteless, I don't even call it tasteless, but pretty nasty tasting food, right, that exists in the world. This is what Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa eats. In other words, what he realized to be true is that the only thing for me to survive in this world, for Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa, was one kav, one leader of these caribs. And everything else in the world, in the mind of Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa, was not emet. It was not true because it was unnecessary. If I can live on a liter of caribs from week to week, then that's what I will do. And everything else, again, is not mukhrach. There was no need to buy new furniture. There is no need to buy a nicer suit or a better pair of shoes or a prime rib steak. Everything, as good as it is not emet in the eyes of Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa. And if a person wants to live a life of emet, then he has to understand that really all he needs is one cup of caribs, 1 liter of caribs, and that's enough for him. And there are many people in this world that tried to replicate this type of life. and you speak to them and you say, wow, you're 90 years old, you're 100 years old. Once a person was asked, what did you do to merit such a long life? And he answered, Bemi'ot achila, with little eating, with diminished amount of eating. Because the Rambam says, Sheribui achila, with too much eating, that is mazik la'adam. So you're probably thinking the opposite about what you're talking about. There's a lot of nutrients in the food, there's vitamins, the protein, and you can find, you're right, there's a lot of things that gives you the energy, but that's a temporary energy. The Rambam says you can actually survive a very long time with a little bit. And Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa was proof to that, and he lived a very, very long life. So that is actually the continuation of the pasuk. If that's what makes Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa a true man, an anshe emet, man of truth, it's also the meaning of son'e batza, of a person who despises money, a person who is a man of truth, and he only takes from this world what he absolutely needs, then he despises money. To him, kesef, mammon, zahav is all extra. It's just a weight down on his neshama. I should have prefaced this class by saying that what we are going to talk about today and continue to talk about is something that is not easy. It is not easy for the average Jew to do, and clearly we know because these are the criteria that Yitro told Moshe Rabbeinu. These are going to be your judges, right? Where there's not, if this was easy, then any of us could have been on the Sanhedrin of Moshe Rabbeinu. To be son'e batza, to be anshe emet, requires an extra level of sacrifice. Where, you know what, I'm okay with the floors I have in my house. I don't need to redo my floors. Again, I don't need a new dress every 2 months because my dress is fine. It's not worn out. It's not torn. And why should I invest just for the sake of investing? It's a lifestyle that we're not used to, certainly. But Moshe Feinstein was very famous in saying, you can't blame a person for smoking, and being an addicted smoker, and you can't blame him for the cigarette that he has now, because he's been smoking for 20 years. All that you could blame him for was the first cigarette. The first cigarette is what you can blame him for, because he convinced himself that he needs a cigarette. But once he took that first puff, he's now categorized as a smoker. And now that's it. So he convinced himself that he needs the first one, and he should have realized that it was unnecessary. Proof, there are millions of people on earth that don't smoke, that have never taken one puff of a cigarette or a cigar or marijuana or anything else. So the emet is realizing what you need and what you don't need. Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa, this is the meaning of the Midrash. You want to know who Anshe Emet and Sonei Batza is? Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa, a person that was able to live, yes, in a bubble. We call living in a bubble. That's what it was. Just give me my kerbs my week to week, and the rest I'm going to sit down and learn Torah. Believe it or not, there were many tzaddikim, even in recent generations, that lived like this, and they understood what it is to hate money and receive very, very little, certainly from other people, as that's what we're going to get to. That's what we're moving towards. The old Av Bet Din of Yerushalayim, Rav Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, Zecher Tzadik Racha, says a couple stories about himself. He was one of these individuals. How he never took money from anybody. He was mamash son'e batza, and except for the money that he got as a parnasa, which is for acting as the head of court, and whether from the yeshiva that he learned or the kollel, he never took money from anyone. There was actually, however, the story that he relates that in the yeshiva they had some sort of fund that was automatic, that anyone that was marrying off a child, the gabbai of the fund, the person in charge of the money over there, would provide 10 Napoleon coins. This is what whatever these coins were, 10 of these to every family who was marrying off a child. It was almost like a chesed, achnasat kala. It's not easy living a life studying Torah and living in Kolel, no question. So you know what? There's a special fund from tzedakah. Anybody that's marrying a son or a daughter, here are your 10 coins. So he was actually marrying off his daughter. And for what reason or not, we don't know. But the person in charge of this gizbar, of this a little chest of funds, forgot to give him the 10 coins. And certainly would have helped a lot. But he didn't say anything. And weeks passed and months passed. It was coming close to the wedding. He never got these 10 coins. And he said, okay, I'm not getting it. It's Emina Shamayim. I have a full emunah. Everything is going to go well. That nothing is going to, deter or push off or make this wedding any less special than it is. And he did not ask money from anyone. He had full faith in Hashem. So on the Shabbat before the wedding, the Ashkenazim have a custom that the Khatan goes up to the Torah. They call it Afruf. And so Shabbat before the wedding, the Gabbai went to Rabbi Yosef Chaim and says, who should we give an aliyah today to? Who should get an aliyah? Oh, big question. Yeah, this is a big question. Who gets the aliyah? Who doesn't get the aliyah? So Rabbi Yosef Chaim, even though he could have felt something not to give it to maybe the guy in charge of the money, but he didn't want anyone thinking chas v'shalom anything. So he said, give it to the guy in charge of the fund. Give him the aliyah. The person that forgot to give him the 10 coins, give him the aliyah. And he gave him besimcha, and everybody was very happy. The wedding was set for Friday morning, and everyone's rushing. Where are we going? Oh, there's a wedding. Who's wedding? Oh, the daughter of Rabbi Yosef Chaim. Today? Oh my goodness, I forgot to give the 10 coins. He's embarrassed. He finally realizes on the day of the Hatunah that he forgot to give him that money. Of all people, not to give the money, it's the Av Bet Din. He is so embarrassed, he doesn't know what to do. He runs back to his office, grabs the 10 coins, and he, again, chasing after the Chacham to try to give him this money. He goes, Rabbi, please, I forgot to give you the money. Here's the 10 coins to help support the wedding. And Rabbi Yosef Chaim takes the money and he gives it back to his hand. He says, I'm not taking it. He goes, why? He goes, this is for you. It's meant for you. He goes, no. Why? Because the contract, meaning the rules of this money, goes to people who need the money for a wedding. My wedding is today. My wedding is taken care of. I don't need the money anymore. So therefore, I am not allowed to take this money. And therefore, I'm giving it back to you. I don't want it. You only give money to people who need it to pay a debt, flowers, cameraman, whatever it is. My wedding is set up. I don't want it. And that is anshe emet sonei ba'atza, people who want nothing from others. They despise money. He says another story of himself of how once he was looking through his pockets, and sorry, take that back. He had a baby boy. He had a baby boy, and he didn't have enough to pay for the Seudah Brit Milah. Called the caterer, too much money. I don't know what to do. So he had this rule: I'm not taking any gifts, and you can guarantee yourself that there were probably so many people willing to put money and food and give him, but he didn't want it. So he had a lottery ticket from Austria in his pocket, and he told the caterer, he goes, I will give you this money, this lottery ticket, in exchange for a Seudah. So he agreed, okay. It turns out that this lottery ticket won, I don't know, 100,000 gold, whatever it is, a monstrous amount of money. And all he got was, he sold it for like 200, just enough to pay for the Brit Milah. When the guy won, he went up to Rav Yosef Chaim and he said, I want to give you 1,000. I feel like, you sold it, the question you always ask yourself, if someone gives you a lottery ticket and you win, do you give them something in return? You're always going to get two different camps, right? No way, not a chance in the world. I got to give him something, right? So this is what the guy said. I feel like I got to give you something. He says, no, I don't want it. I don't want it because I'm not taking anything for myself. I don't want to accept gifts bichlal from anybody. It's son'e batza. So what does that mean? What does that mean? Where does this idea come from? Where does this idea come from? Yeah, yes, the source is certainly in our Chumash, in this week's parasha, but really this idea is learned in Mishlei. In Mishlei, written by Shlomo HaMelech. Shlomo HaMelech in the 15th chapter writes, he says, Ocher beto botzea batza. One who gains through robbery sullies his home. That's not the part of the verse I wanted to tell you. Vesone matanot yichyeh. Shlomo HaMelech says, very, very, very famous line. One who hates gifts will live. One who hates gifts will live. This is actually codified in Shulchan Aruch. If you look in Shulchan Aruch, in Choshen Mishpat, he writes, Anshe Chasidim would always hate gifts in order that they should live. So Vilna Gaon says that a person who is anxiously waiting for people to give him something, here, take this, here's a little bit of food, here's a little bit of money, is likely to be disappointed when he doesn't get it that one time. Whatever he was expecting and it didn't get there, he's going to be disappointed. And therefore, a person who hates gifts is going to yichyeh, he's going to live because he's going to enjoy life, as opposed to the person who loves gifts and cannot enjoy life because he's just waiting for the next one. There's the Gemara Masechet Beitzah, Daf Lamed Bet Amud Bet, that says Shlosha Hayehen Enam Hayim. There are three types of people who their lives are not even lives. Don't even consider them lives. Ve'eluen, these are them. Number one, Hametzapeh leShulchan Chavero. That's the one that we're talking about. A person who waits to be invited to a friend's house. You always have those guys. They're just waiting to be invited. Where's the next invitation? This guy, no question, he is the recipient of chesed. But this guy's not living a life. You want to know the other two? I'll mention anyway. Number two, Ishto Moshelet Alav. If a person's wife rules over him and controls him, this guy's also not living. He's not living a life. I don't want to go in depth in this one too much. And the third one is Yisurin Moshin Begufo, a person who suffers with a lot of pain and affliction. This person also, Hayim, Hayehen Enam Hayim. This is what it is. So if you're constantly waiting to what someone else is going to give you, then how can you live? Because you're always just looking for what? You're always on the lookout on what's coming next. And you can't enjoy with what you have now. The Rav Nachman Breslev, in his Sefer Likutei Maharan, says something very, very powerful. He says, Veze Perush, this is the meaning, Ahalela Adonai Bechayai. We say every day in Ashrei, after Ashrei, we say a bunch of Hallelujahs. So, Ahalela Adonai Bechayai, Azamena Lelohai Be'odi. What does it mean, Ahalela Adonai Bechayai? I will praise God for my life. Hainu, Keshe'en Nitzrach Laberiot. When a person does not require Beriot, mankind, to help him. Ze Bechayai. This is his life. Bechayai Daika. Hainu She'ani Chai Me'achayim Sheli. I'm alive because of my own life. I am living because of what I have. She'eno nitzlach lechiyut shum adam. I don't need the life of anybody else. I don't need you to give me anything. It's so nice of you to give me a present. It's so nice of you to help me and support me and say, hey, it's great, but I don't need it. Ki hanitzrach laberiot. As a person who needs someone else, chayav enam hayim, and he quotes his Gemara, Masechet Beitzah. Hainu she'enam hayim shelo. Because you received a gift. That's not your life. That's someone else giving it to you. He's giving a part of his life to you. Ki hu chai me'acherim. Now you're living from someone else's life. Aval kishe'eni nitzrach laberiot. But when I don't need other people to help me, v'ani chai chaim sheli, and I live my own life, azai uchal lehalelo. Now I can praise Him, ulitpalel lefanav be'emet, and stand in prayer truthfully and thank Him for everything that I have. Vezeu halela Hashem b'chayai. And that's the meaning of halela Hashem b'chayai. We say this every single day. Every single day we say that line. Now you know what that means. What do you mean? I praise God for my life. What do you mean my life? Okay, thank you. I say Modeani. So I already said Modeani lefanecha. Why do I have to say this line again? No, I'm thanking Hashem that what I have is enough for me. And when the moment someone else gives me something else, chazaku baruch, but it's not mine. It's not mine, and I can't live that way because it's not my life. I'm living your life. That's your bottle of scotch. That's your $100. That's your, I don't know, what else you give me. But it's not mine. It's an extremely powerful word here. The Gemara Masechet Chulin all recounts a couple of stories of how careful the Chachamim were when it came to accepting gifts. When Rabbi Elazar was sent a gift from the house of the Nasi. The Nasi was the president of the Jewish people. And I'm not talking about like the president of Israel. That's not what I'm referring to. Okay, Hillel was the Nasi. Just to put it into perspective. Hillel, Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, the one who compiled the Mishnah. These were the top rabbis in the world. In the world. No one was greater than these rabbis. And when Rabbi Elazar was sent a gift from the Nasi, or the Resh Galuta, the leader, who was, I guess, the political leader at the time, he didn't accept it. Gemara says he didn't accept it. And when he was invited to the house to eat there, he didn't go. He didn't accept the invitation. And when they asked him, why not? Why don't you want to go to the house? He left. Why not? He goes, but don't you want me to live? You want me to stay alive? No. Pasuk says, Sonei matanot yichyeh. Those who hate gifts will live. So I want to stay alive. I don't want to go. Now, who in our generation would turn down an invitation like that? So I'm saying, it's these are ideas and concepts that are very difficult to grasp. But absolutely not. I want to live my life. And I feel very comfortable living my life. Rabbi Zaira, who also was invited, who also was given a gift, he turned down the gift as well. But he had a different shita when he got the invitation. When he got the invitation, he accepted the invitation. Why? And he explained, because they're honored by my presence at the meal. When I go to that meal, the guests are honored from the fact that I'm there, and it gives them pleasure, and therefore it's okay if I go to the meal. Okay, he had a different shita. But it's mind-boggling to think of this, that these people were willing to turn down such a prestigious invitation. I mean, I get an invitation from the premier or the prime minister, like, wow, what an honor. Yeah, I'm running over there to get, even the free food is worth it also, right? But let alone the kavod that you're going to get, and they wanted nothing of it. Sonei matanot yichyeh. And where did they get this from? It started here. It started right here, this week's parasha. Anshe emet sonei batza. And our great leaders of the past made it a point to express this notion to all their followers, not to accept gifts, even if they were rightfully deserving of getting gifts. And two leaders come to mind specifically, Moshe Rabbeinu and Shmuel HaNavi. Soon we're going to, in a few weeks' time, in a few months, in fact, we're going to be reading the story of Korach. And Korach had his cohort of people who laid claim against Moshe that he was misusing his position of power, amongst other things. And there was a false charge that was leveled against him by his cohort, more specifically Datan and Abiram, part of the Arab route. They were involved in all the bad things during the 40 years. And they claimed that Moshe Rabbeinu sought to dominate the nation for his own benefit. And Moshe Rabbeinu very famously says, Lo chamor echad nasati, I have not even taken one donkey of theirs. And Rashi says, what does it mean I haven't even taken one donkey of theirs? He says that when Moshe Rabbeinu was returning from Midian to Egypt to rescue Bnei Israel, just in the last few weeks that we've been reading in the parasha, and he brought his wife and his children on a donkey, he used his own donkey from his own money. As a leader of Am Yisrael, he had every right. He was performing a duty for the Jewish people. Today, what do we have? We have employee cars, right? Oh, this is company cars. This belongs to the company. And you feel, well, I deserve. I work for the company, and I travel, so why should I not have my own car? And you are 100% right. You're 100%, logically, you're 100% right. Why should I spend my own gas? If I'm working for the company, let them pay for my gas, let them pay me my car, let them pay for my cell phone. This is standard today in many corporations. And Moshe Rabbeinu could have easily said, if you want me going around from tent to tent, why should my donkey get tired? Why should I put mileage on my donkey? You give me one of your donkeys. Right? And he could have done that, but that's not what he said. That's what he said to the Tana Aviram in a few weeks from now. He said, I used my own donkey. Although I was performing a duty for Am Yisrael to save them, it was not going to come from your pocket, it was going to come from mine. And when Shmuel HaNavi similarly was going around the whole country to rebuke the nation, he asked him again to bear witness if he had ever taken an ox or a donkey from anyone. And although, again, he had every right going from city to city, this is not Moshe Rabbeinu, which is in one camp, which is not even that much. This is the whole country Shmuel HaNavi was going through. He had every right to use public funds. By then, they were already in the land, established. There was money. He could have went there and said, listen, I gotta pay for food. I'm lodging. I'm going to this town. I need to stay at a hotel and an inn. Who's going to pay that innkeeper? It should come from public funds, but he never did so. And throughout the generations, there's been many, many God-fearing people, Yirei Elokim, who avoided financial dealings that might make the recipients, that might make them recipients rather than givers. There's a story brought down here in the notes, in the art scroll of Mishlei, talks about a survivor of World War II. His name is Baruch Kudowitz. I hope I pronounced his name properly. And we said that when he escaped the war, while he was on the run, he found refuge among some Polish partisans who kept him safe. And after the war, he went back to the town that he grew up, Baranovich, and to see if any of his relatives survived. Unfortunately, none of his relatives survived. But there was one Gentile neighbor who recognized him 5 years later. And I told him, listen, I remember your Baruch, there's a letter for you in the post office. And so he went back to the post office, and it was a 1-year-old letter, postmarked from 1944, so this was probably about 1 year after the war ended. And the letter was addressed to his father, who was no longer alive. And it was from a man named Rabbi David Yitro, who was the Rav of Baranovich, the Rav of this town. And this rabbi was deported to Siberia, and that's where he died in Siberia. And we opened the letter. It contained a ruble, a crumpled ruble, and a little note that said that in 1938, me, Rabbi Witzel, borrowed a zloty from you, the Baruch's father, and now that I'm in Siberia, I don't know if I'm ever going to have a chance to repay his debt in person, and I don't want to accept a gift from anybody. And therefore, I'm sending you back 1 ruble. The postage probably cost more than the ruble that he was sending back. But to send the ruble in lieu of the zloty, so that he would not remain financially obligated to anyone, only reinforces this idea of soneh matanot yicheh, of hating gifts is what brings a person life. And truth is, it's not so far-fetched. It's actually something that we recite every single day, or every single time you recite Birkat HaMazon. In the second bracha, in the third bracha, Birkat HaMazon, Rachem Hashem Eloheinu Aleinu V'al Yisrael Amach. Just fast forward a few lines where we ask Hashem to feed us and to nourish us, to sustain us, to relieve us, and then we say, Ve'al tatzrichenu Adonai Eloheinu lidei matenot basar vadam, ve'lo lidei alva'atam. Shematana, this is the Moroccan custom. Shematana meuta v'chaveh mera ela liyadecha mera v'achava. In other words, saying, don't make us dependent on the gifts of men of flesh and blood, nor their loans, since their gifts. This is what we say. The Moroccans have this custom. Shematenatam me'utam ve'cherpatam meruba. Because their gifts are minuscule and their shame is great. Meaning, it actually brings us shame. It brings you shame when you're forced to receive something. And this is something that's an ask. Every time we say Birkat HaMazon, we're asking, I don't want help. I should live a life that I don't need assistance from other people. It's gifts to desist, as we call the shiur. It's not that Chas v'Shalom gifts are not good. And, but halvai, we get to a certain level where we say, you know what, I'm okay with what I have. I know I'm okay with what I have. I don't need another pair of shoes. I don't need another jacket. I don't need another car. I don't need, and I always speak for myself when we give these types of classes, because we live in a society where it's just always trying to find the newer thing, the better thing. I gotta try this. I gotta go to that restaurant. I need to try this new item in the supermarket, and that's. And we have that Yetzer Hara to do so. We fall prey to the Yetzer Hara. But we have to understand that when you do that you're not a Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa. You're not a Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, you're not an Anshe Emet, and you're not a Sonei Batza. And therefore, none of us here would be eligible to even apply for the position of the Sanhedrin. For sure not in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, either we can say. But although these things seem far-fetched, we still ask for it, and we still pray for it, and we still say every day, Ahala Hashem b'chayai. Let me thank Hashem for what I have. Let me look at what I have and say, you know what? I'm okay. I don't need. Nothing wrong with turning down a gift. Nothing wrong with turning down a gift. The guy could have the best intentions. No, I really want to. I really want this. You can turn it down. You can explain to him why. Sonei matanot yichyeh. This is the advice that Shlomo HaMelech gives. You want life. You want your own life. You have to be able to look at your life and your own life and not look at what someone else might give you, because that's a part of them. B'ezrat Hashem, we should have that strength, that difficult, again, it's a difficult idea, it's a difficult concept to grasp, it's not pashut, but we do, this is what got Yitro into the Torah. The parasha of the 10 Commandments is named Yitro because of this section. This is what message he wanted us to know. You're going to establish Sanhedrin. You're going to establish a court of justice and a court of law for the rest of eternity. These are the qualities you need to have. And if that's something that Hashem felt was important enough to know, to include in the Torah, and to name the Parasha Yitro, then that's something that we have to do our best to strive for. Wishing everybody a wonderful night ahead.